Well, I was performing at the time in a play on Broadway called The Sisters Rosenzweig by Wendy Wasserstein, um, an NEA recipient, by the way. And I, my background goes way back to wanting to be an actress from a very early age. And what brought me to have a substantial career in it was an NEA grant to the Arena Stage in Washington, where I was performing The Great White Hope, a new play with James Earl Jones and myself as the stars. And that was a grant of $25,000 to Arena Stage and to Howard Sackler, the playwright. Well, I think I've been an activist certainly for the arts and for some other issues throughout my life, and I think I was kind of in the spotlight on stage on Broadway at that time in any case. And when they came to be seeking a chairman, they were looking at me. I was vetted as one of about 40 candidates, and I was as surprised as anyone when they chose me in the end. But because of the NEA grant that had really jump-started my career to The Great White Hope, I really wanted to pay back for all the great things that the National Endowment for the Arts had done, not only for me, but for people in America. The vision for the NEA began under JFK when he was president, when a group of important people in the arts and in business in Washington, D.C. and New York substantially came together and suggested that we have a national arts organization along the lines that was happening in Britain and other great nations of the world. And JFK bought into that. Unfortunately, his life was cut short, as we know, in 1963. And LBJ jumped on this opportunity to continue what he called the Great Society under his presidency. And that's when the NEA came about in 1965. And substantially, it was to decentralize the arts from the great urban areas of America, like New York, Chicago, Los Angeles at the time, and have the opportunity for all people across the country to experience art in either a participatory way or as an audience member as well. Well, in 1993, I was brought in because my predecessor, John Frohnmeyer, under George Bush Sr. as president, had run into substantial problem with grants that were considered egregious by Congress. I knew very well what I was coming into. I had been vetted carefully by members of the arts community itself as to whether I would uphold First Amendment rights. And First Amendment rights had always been very important to me as an actress, freedom of expression. So yes, I was going to, of course, uphold First Amendment rights because the arts cannot exist really without freedom to create. I understood almost immediately when I came in, because I was so well grounded in the culture wars of the time, that I would have to go out to the American people and talk to them one-on-one if I could, and town by town, about what the NEA really did in their backyards that they may not have understood. So my scheduler was great. He got me on the road to 200 cities and towns across America in the first 13 months of my time being at the NEA, and to all 50 states and some of the districts as well. And everywhere I went, I was greeted by people who loved the arts in their backyards. They may not have made the connection between what the National Endowment for the Arts, perhaps even through their state arts granting, did for their community. But once I made it clear to them, they said, oh, of course, we don't want this agency to go away. It's where my children go after school. It's where I go and watch a symphony or a jazz concert. It's where we have a festival of the arts in Michigan, celebrating the Calder art piece. those kinds of things. So once I understood that the people were beginning to connect what the NEA really did for them, it was far easier. And it was the people of America who really let their legislators know from then on that they didn't want this agency gone. Well, we already had, as I pointed out, a good percentage of the money that the National Endowment for the Arts gets from Congress going to the states. That was part of what we were. And I applauded that. And through the states, it whittled down to local agencies and, of course, many nonprofit organizations that were also extant in any given place. I think I was most proud always when I went and saw children experience art for the first time, either in their schools or in after-school programs or in a dance class down the street or in theater or making art. I remember one boy in Kansas really stayed with me. He was having quite a drug problem in his teenage years, and somehow he got into a program that taught him how to work clay on a wheel. And that calmed him and became his life work, and that's still what he's doing today. Well, I would say the first one is they're not entirely reliable because they will pull out when they need to. The great thing about a government agency is it is around, let's hope, for a long time, if not forever, if it's worthy. And the NEA is highly worthy, having fulfilled its mission just completely to decentralize the arts in America. So the first thing is that at 60 years, it has already proven itself to be a great winner in the community. For example, I'll just take theater. Nonprofit theater in the United States in the 1960s was only in a handful of cities across America, places like the Cleveland Playhouse and a couple of great theaters in Texas and Arena Stage in Washington, D.C., actually, as well. But today, there are over 1,400 of them across the United States. Now, that's pretty remarkable. So almost everybody has the opportunity to understand theater and be a part of it if they so wish. That's very exciting to me. Well, the reason why we need government support of the arts, as well as nonprofit. I mean, we are a capitalist society, and we have both public and private entities that make things possible. But the thing that's really important for the arts is to be sustaining in one way or another. Theaters and large cultural institutions like symphonies, dance programs, festivals, things like that go year to year, have to be sustained annually in order to thrive. And usually they cannot totally be funded privately. The other reason is because private entities often drop out and foundations drop out. The Ford Foundation and the Rockefeller Foundation were huge entities giving to the arts back in the late 60s and the early 70s. But they pulled away and went more into social issues at one time and left the cultural world, not completely, of course, but to a great extent, which made it hard for those organizations to keep up. So organizations are one thing, and the NEA is a sustaining entity for sure. It is also an educational force because it allows people the opportunity to learn the arts, to see the arts, maybe to become an artist, which might not have been in their life before. It gives them opportunity and access. And then it's a lifeline for ongoing sustainability, as I said earlier, for all kinds of programs. And it's also an imprimatur of excellence, the NEA. If you get an NEA grant, it means, boy, you're worth watching. And so I love that. It also awards the highest excellence in the arts in the United States of America and the districts, and I think that's important. And the final thing I'd have to say is that it's a vision of the value of arts to society. NEA is up there right in all the other government agencies as an important entity. And let's not forget what LBJ said when he became president, and he, 60 years ago in September 1965, said, "Art is a nation's most precious heritage, the inner vision which guided and guides, and where there is no vision, the people perish." Where there is no vision, the people perish. Creative minds create vision for the future. And we must remember what LBJ said. Art is a nation's most precious heritage, the inner vision which guides, and where there is no vision, the people perish. Where there is no vision, the people perish. Because vision is what we need for our future in order to make a great world. I also want to say what Isaac Stern, the great violinist, used to talk to me a lot about when I was chairman of the NEA and we were going through such throes of possible elimination. He said, "The child's mind is the wealth of a nation. The child's mind is a wealth of the nation." And it's not money. It's about vision and possibilities for a better future. And that's what creative minds do. They build this, they help build it for us. Happy birthday, National Endowment for the Arts. Thank you for giving us all the creativity you have through these past 60 years. And may you continue to thrive forever. Well, Andrew, if you remember, I did say that foundations are fickle. Foundations may support the arts for a certain amount of time, but they also go on to other priorities of their own. And that happened with the National Endowment for the Arts back in the 70s and the early 80s when some of the foundations began to switch over to social issues, which seemed the most important to them at the time. Exactly. Well, that was the tension that was paramount before me, because there were some grants that were considered egregious by Congress back when I came into the NEA in 1993. This tension is part and parcel of what the arts are, because the creative mind will always go to areas which are new and unique, perhaps, which rattle a lot of people. That's understood. However, if you have a jury of your peers, which is what the NEA has in adjudicating grants, you should come out to a good balance of where excellence thrives. I'm not saying that very egregious grants are not excellence, but let's go back to what Abraham Lincoln always said: you can't please all the people all the time. And we know that to be true. So there's going to be tension constantly, and sometimes it erupts, and sometimes you have to look at the grants that are causing such discomfort among people, and you have to educate them. So what happened under my aegis was I asked the organizations that were doing some NEA work to make sure that the audience knew beforehand that they were going to be entering an area that may be uncomfortable for them by explaining what it might be about beforehand. And many, many theaters do that now, as you'll see. You even see it on a TV screen as well. This contains violence, this contains this, and so on. But the basic tension we just have to live with, because not everybody will like everything, period.